Welcome back to Born for This Stories, where we speak the truths no one told us, so you don't have to carry this alone. We keep having the same conversations with parents, even though their situations look completely different. And at some point, we realize it deserves its own episode. So today, we're just talking about what we're noticing, what keeps coming up, and what parents keep questioning in silence. Welcome back to Born for This Stories. Dr. Johanna.
And Peter.
And we are doing a solo episode today because it's been a minute.
Yep, it's just time to recap and talk about about the different stories we've heard, about the different people we've interviewed and talked with, and how they are all very similar and yet very different at the same time.
I agree. I think this is a good little moment to reflect on all the episodes that have been released because most of them have a very common theme. We have chatted with all kinds of different medical parents. We have spoke about multiple diagnoses and conditions from hypospadias, juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, limb differences, club feet, and we have one coming up on DiGeorge syndrome. So all across the board, all kinds of different conditions, all kinds of different parents, all kinds of different walks of life. But there are some underlying patterns when we talk to them.
Right. So why don't you go ahead and share some of the very common themes that we've heard from different parents and caregivers, and so that we can kind of go through them and talk about what connection we're making between each of them.
Yeah, so the first one that I definitely want to touch on for our listeners is a lot of times out there as the caregivers, we're saying things like, I don't want to sound dramatic. Maybe I'm overthinking this. Other people have it so much worse. And I think this is a great time to just validate everybody's feelings. The woman in me wants to validate.
Right. I kind of take away from it that a lot of people want to downplay what they've gone through. Obviously, what we went through with our child is completely different than some of the much more serious diagnoses that other parents have gotten with their children. We certainly do not have the hardest story by any stretch of the imagination, but we do understand that it's all relative. And I think that a lot of people, they don't want to have a pity party for themselves, so they downplay it, and that's okay. But what's your take on that?
Well, I do remember before we started this podcast thinking like, oh my gosh, like, are we the right people to cultivate this space? Because for us, what we went through with our son was a big deal. But if you were an outsider looking in, you didn't know anything was wrong, because if you've listened to our story in the first couple of episodes, you can't physically see the birth defect that he has. Well, if he's clothed, you can't see it, which, you got a 50-50 shot these days on what he's doing. But with the other part of that is like, even inside of hypospadias itself, like he had a quote unquote more severe case, but it still wasn't as severe as other cases. And so talking to our other guest, I mean, we've had, all kinds of guest on, and the like severity of conditions has been extreme in some cases. And it before we even started, I thought, oh my God, I don't know if we're the right people to do this, because our story is going to sound so minimal compared to others. But the important part is that no matter what your story is, condition, the walk that you had to take, it's okay to not be okay inside of that space as you're navigating it, or even beyond, because that's something else we'll talk about, is just carrying that load past a corrective aspect if that's something that is able to be done for your child. And maybe that it's not, maybe they have prolonged care, lifelong care that's going to be needed, and you're going to feel all of those feelings along the way. So it's just also validating every parent out there that's listening that no matter how big or small it may seem, it is still an effect to your life and to your ecosystem. And therefore, it is okay to feel the feelings, to go through the grieving process, the anger process, the researching, all of the things, the acceptance of it, and come out on the other side. It's all okay.
Yeah, I think that for me, I also felt the same way, but I felt that our story, I mean, I was raised to always try to put a positive spin on things and be thankful for what you have. And so it is hard to share emotional aspects of any of this, because quite frankly, like I know a lot of people have it way worse than what we went through. We've heard many stories already of people who've had much more severe, long, drawn out, just scary times that I can't even fathom.
Hmm.
So it's hard to try to start a movement or start a culture or start anything when you know you're not like the epitome of the story. But even like we said, that there's a lot of similarities between every story, no matter how severe, and it does change your life trajectory, and then you have to change every aspect of your life, even if it is something more minor than some other things. So I think that there's a relatability for everyone that has
Hmm.
spoken so far. So I think that we are all learning through the whole process, which is pretty cool.
For sure. Yeah. And I mean, that is a common theme in the stories that have been told is it is a learning process. I mean, many of the care providers are not in the medical system themselves, and they've had to become part of that. So they've had to learn how to talk to the specialist, how to do their own research, because sometimes the support is not provided. How to just continue to listen to, your mom gut or your dad gut and advocate for your child when things don't quite seem right. And that's a whole new space for a lot of people that they have to navigate. So I definitely want to validate them in that. And additionally, like, I also feel like we are the right people to hold this space because we are able to listen to everybody's story and hold the space for them. No judgment, no matter what path you decided. We are here for support, for advocacy, to allow for you to share your story because there is always someone else out there that is walking very similar shoes to you and or similar path. Now they're getting to know me a little bit more. Walking a very similar path. And it's nice to know that you're not alone. So even for our guests, like even if their story only resonates with one or two other families and those families feel validated inside that moment, that's a win in my book.
Yeah, we've already gotten, I mean, quite a few comments and people reaching out to us from around the world, really in different countries, which shocked me. And just telling us how relatable it was and how they're dealing with the same thing as one of our guests, and their insight really changed the trajectory of how they were handling things, or they were sitting in the waiting room of a surgery and they found the podcast, and somebody who talked on it to the specific diagnosis that they had just eased their mind at the right time, which is just so cool to hear. So sharing your stories really have already changed people's lives, even though this, is just a new thing for us still.
Yes. And speaking about it, like I do want to note that obviously we talk to all kinds of different people and at different phases inside their journey. And if you are a caregiver that's listening currently and you're like, it's all nice and good, but like I just cannot bring myself to share a story, that's okay. Because we were not there. When we were going through this with our son, it took 18 months to get to the other side. And we thought once that 18-month mark was over, we would never, ever talk about this again.
That's
But
what I planned. I planned. I said I can't wait to get it done and never talk about it again. But here we are.
here we are. So, but I do feel good about talking about it though, because I have, like you said, we've had tons of outreach and people saying this has really helped them. They resonate with it. So even if you're not ready to tell your story currently, we hope that this is a safe space that provides you with what is needed to support you and that you may be able actually to share your story later with us helping and our guests helping you navigate this space some. So remember that some of the individuals on these episodes have been in the throes of this for a while. And it is so much easier to speak from scars instead of open wounds. And when it's super fresh and super new, it's okay to not want to elaborate and to talk about it. And it's okay to be more inward with it. And that's what support we're here for you. I'd love to get your perspective, Peter, and tell me what is one of the most common themes that stand out to you.
Well, I think that one of the impressive things that I've noticed is it's kind of obvious, and I think most people would do it in this situation, but every medical parent or caregiver turns into a very well educated person based on what they're going through, so much to the level that most stories end up with them having to correct doctors or nurses or make sure that they're doing something. Or even in several of the episodes, we heard that they were the ones that found the linchpin in the situation to make things better,
Mm.
which just shows you that if you're just starting one of these down this path, like you're going to rise to levels that you don't even realize to protect your child. And it's pretty amazing to watch and hear stories about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel that these caregivers have become their the biggest advocate for their child. And with that being said, I mean, you have to be. I don't think we ever expect to be in this position, or I would say few of us expect to be in this position. And so when you are put into it, I mean, you love and you care for your child and you'll want to do what's ever the best for them. I find that there's a time and a place for medicine and for surgery, and we love the doctors and the nurses and the surgeons that do all of that. However, like their job is to do that task. It is unfortunately not to make sure that the parent is overly educated, has all the questions answered, has the most common questions that have been asked along this path, have access and provide access to support of other parents that have gone through this. So that's where like the isolation definitely comes in, and that's where the becoming your own advocate comes in, because you're handed this information, and if you know nothing about it, you're going to jump in and start doing some research. So you're left kind of to your own devices on like, how do we figure this out? Like, what is the right path? How do we ask these right questions and navigating that space? So that's definitely something that has been very common theme.
Right. And then the best aspect of that is that parents see every single appointment, every single thing, every single different doctor and specialist and nurse says about their child. But doctors and nurses are doing the best they can, but
Yeah.
they're only seeing your child for one step of the way. And they might say things like, this is really common. It's no big deal. But it's no big deal for them. It's not their child. They deal with this all the time, and that's all well and fine, but it doesn't mean that it's low impact or it doesn't affect your life in a huge way. I mean,
Yeah.
with hypospadias, we always heard the quote, it's the most common birth defect that no one's ever heard of. And it's like, for as common as it is, I'd never heard of it, and I've never heard a story about it, and I've never seen anyone talk about it. And it's certainly nothing that I grew up in school knowing that, I don't know, a few of kids in class with us or in our school have it or anything like that. So there was nothing to really lean on there.
Oh, yeah. And I do remember when we talked to his surgeon one time, she was trying to give us like an analogy of the surgery centers outside of Dallas. Like, so if you were in the Dallas like football stadium and it was completely full, how many men in there would actually have hypospadias? And it was like a decent amount.
Yeah.
Which was,
I don't remember the number.
I don't remember the number. I wish I could, but that was like very enlightening to think about, because
I think it was in like the high teens or something.
Yeah, as you walk this path, like you probably have encountered possibly someone else that's had it. And one of the guests that we have on, I definitely remember her talking about the fact that like they growing up, she had a relative that had this same condition as her child, and turns out that turned into being like a support system for her, because she could go back and ask him questions and get a different perspective. Because as a mom, and you can speak about this as a dad in a second, but as a mom, my brain is constantly thinking about, how is my child going to analyze this? How's my child going to interpret this at his different phases of life? And ultimately, no, I can't control it, but we want to try to control the narrative as much as possible so they're hurt the least amount. And that's just always going on in my brain. So to have someone that you can talk about it to, that had already went through it as your child's young and going like as in their aging, I think is also very valuable.
For me, I just really was leaning on the fact that with our specific situation, that after his third surgery, and who knew at that point, maybe another one or two, that hopefully he wasn't going to know or be any the wiser to the situation. He just was going to live a normal life. Granted, not that I'm going to try to hide it from him or not tell him, but him hearing about something he went through that no longer affects his life at all is completely different than what other families that we've heard of, have to talk about when they have something that affects them for the rest of their life. So that's where the stories are all relative. But for me, that's where I was focused on, is let's get through this and then let's not ever talk about it again.
Yeah, well, the other reason that I felt called to talk about it is because I have two crazy stories I don't even know if you remember, of scenarios that happened as I was reaching out and researching more about our son's condition, hypospadias. And of course, if you're new to the show, hypospadias is a condition that affects typically like the penis and, well, it's the urethra. So you're going to see a birth defect with the penis and the scrotum and the tissue in that area. And so as I'm navigating this space, I was in the Facebook groups doing the research, and the quicker story is I had a man message me, and he saw where I lived because, it's displayed on your profile. And he had said like, oh, I'm so-and-so, I have hypospadias. If you would like to meet up, I can show you what it looks like. Because like, I'm not ashamed, and like, I think it's important for you to know. And
No, I definitely remember that. And I think he meant well. There's not too many times a man can say to a woman, let's meet up somewhere private so I can show you this and it'd be okay. But I didn't.
I mean, we can laugh about it now, but my
Fair
mom
enough.
brain wanted to just cry because I also did not want my son to grow up, and this was our choice. I did not want him to grow up being inside of these groups and having quote unquote something to prove. I'm not saying this guy had something to prove. However, I almost don't, I don't want him to feel like he has to validate or justify anything. No matter if we decided to correct or to not correct it, it was a very not well received message. I did not message him back, but it was, like just being early on in this phase and trying to find this information, like that was the information that was out there. I just connected more with the mom that sat down and had coffee with me, which I don't even think I drank the coffee. I think I cried the whole 2 hours that we sat there, and she just held space for me and helped and share her story of what she went through with her son. And I was very thankful that we were able to connect and able to talk a little bit about it. I didn't have a solution after that coffee meeting, but I felt like I was less alone because at the time I was the only person, we were the only family I knew going through this.
Right. I also think that was unrelatable, even though I think he had good intentions. I think it was unrelatable because at that point, and very quickly on, we decided that we were not going to have our child live with that situation when there were options out there that we felt like provided a very high likelihood that he would live a completely normal life and not have to deal with altering the way that he normally would function with a normal, situation. So I think that we just didn't need that because we were already past the debate whether we were going to do anything about it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. I just think it was just an enlightening story that was worth telling.
Yeah. No, that was interesting.
We can laugh about it now, but
yes.
I was not laughing at the time.
Right.
We are human too.
Well, some of the other common things, kind of getting away from that story a little bit, that we had heard from just about everyone is that everyone kind of reacted the same when they got the diagnosis. We've heard the term Dr. Google a lot of times, late night, just once they get the kid to bed, they're up and researching and learning everything that they possibly can. Sometimes Dr. Google can be your worst nightmare, and sometimes it can give you some relief and kind of put your mind at ease a little bit. But you're going to sit there and go through all that, replay all the conversations you had with all the doctors, how you're going to manage the next steps of your life. So,
yeah. And it is important to note that just because you make a decision does not mean like the heavy weight of that is going to go away overnight. You just have to live each day as you can and put one foot in front of the other and keep bringing the strength and keep bringing the stability. But also like it's super important, and at least from my perspective, to do things to help better regulate you as the caregiver. And we have heard from several people on our podcast that, they talk to therapists, they go to therapy, they have, or they're really big into God and to church, and they pray, that they have a good friend group and like support from other caregivers going through this. I mean, and whatever your outlet is, it's just super important to find that and to tap into that, because you can quickly and easily lose yourself through this process. And if you are not able to, I don't want to say show up as your best, because that's not really the right term, but if you're not able to ever just release some of this emotion, then you're going to get fatigued, you're going to get burnout, and you're going to get tired. And caregiver burnout is a real thing, and bad things can happen from that. And there are things you can do to avoid it. So I think that is important, and that we do validate that and talk about that as we continue on with this mission. The next part I want to kind of transition to is just really going into like the most common things that we do hear, the feedback, like what you guys are saying in the DMs and the emails. And it's really heartfelt. And it's things like that you're feeling less alone by hearing these stories, that no one prepared you for this part, and thankful that you're hearing some of it, that you can be almost the me too, not that I'm alone. And it just really helps know that like we're on the right path and we're providing this space for you.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, now that you brought that up, is that um, the other thing that I hear almost everyone say is they get on Facebook and they get on Facebook groups. But I don't hear too many people feel like satisfied with the connections they make on that. There's a few that have met or somebody private
Mhm.
messaged them. Um, I know we didn't have the best luck, besides for the story you already shared, with Facebook groups. But it just seemed like a lot of people would post things about how they were handling a certain situation, and a lot of times they would just get corrected in a weird way. It wasn't
Oh
like they were
man.
saying, "Hey, have you tried this? This was what worked for me." It was like, "Why are you doing?" Like, it would just seem a bit kind
Yeah.
of weird to me. So I don't think we felt the I don't think we got what we needed out of any of the Facebook groups, and I think we heard
No.
that as a similar theme from a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, if you could see me, my eyes are rolling right now, not like to discredit any of those groups, but for us and what we were going through, and even to this day, they are very much about you should do this or you should do that, or this is what I did, so you should do it, versus like, again, having like what I consider a safe, non judgmental space to connect with other families. I'll kind of combat that because I do feel like some of the individuals we've talked to have said that about the groups, but at least from my experience, it was not like that.
I think it's
Um,
hard to monitor that though,
well,
and
it
keep it,
is.
because I mean, as much as an admin or someone can keep away just bad posts, like people are just sharing their opinion, and if they differ from your opinion, like that's just it. So I think a Facebook group, although they have good intentions, sometimes it can come up short, and it can be kind of more challenging because you get so many opinions of keyboard warriors that
Yeah. Well, I
think
will
they know everything about it.
also say, I guess this may be a little off topic, but I got pulled into a post the other day, and it took me from being confident inside of myself that like I didn't quote unquote cause this condition in my son, and it pulled me right back into second guessing, did I? Because in the conversation, and I know that these moms are just looking for an answer. I was there once, like I understand, but for these moms, like they are like, okay, well, for our condition like hypospadias, like why were you told that your son got hypospadias? And it was like, I mean, literally there were so many comments, and not there were a few that were comment like the same. They were so different. It was like, well, my doctor told me it was because of this, like low testosterone. My doctor told me it was because of this medication. My doctor told me it was because of this and that and whatever. And I'm over here reading all these like, nope, didn't do that. Nope, didn't take that. Nope, wasn't that. So, but, and then internally I'm like, well, what did I do to cause this? And then all of a sudden I felt bad again. And so again, like that's just a little bit of tangent. These groups can be super helpful, but for us, it's just very, like for me, it's very much of like a trigger. So it pulls me back to creating the safe, non-judgmental space that I craved, because that's not what was provided.
Right, and that's probably not even, we're picking on Facebook groups right now, but that's probably not even directed just at Facebook groups, because I mean, everyone that searches on Google too, though, they can feel a lot better, but then there's going to be a few stories out on the vast internet that make your just heart drop out of your chest because it's an outlier story, or and
Mm-hmm.
it's published in multiple places. So
Mm-hmm.
you develop this idea that, you see the worst of the worst, and you assume, why wouldn't that happen in our situation and all these different
Yeah.
things to fear.
Yeah,
So,
right. And we're not providing medical advice on this show. Like, we're just supporting and providing like a space to share your story that's safe, that can connect with, again, like even if it's one other caregiver or however many caregivers, and you help them feel seen and heard and validated, like that's what this mission is about. And that's exactly why we're here. So we just keep putting it out there. I feel like this is what I consider, and I will say time and time again, it's like chicken soup for the caregiver soul. It's just a nice, safe space and warm space to land and to help bring community back together around these things that really do take community to work through.
right. And I think we definitely want to create something more than just a podcast. I think we're looking to create another community of some sort. I don't think it's going to necessarily be a Facebook group after this conversation, but we definitely have. So if anybody has any feedback for, if you're a mom or dad out there that has gone through this or going through this and have any ideas on how to help people, we'd love to talk with you and work with you. And we have an episode coming up here soon of when we talk to a couple of people that are already doing some stuff in their community to bring to just shed some light on this situation that they're dealing with, and they've had a lot of success with it, and it's pretty cool to hear that story. So it's definitely something we're looking for ideas on, and just wanting to provide as much value as we can to parents and caregivers going through similar things.
Yes, and we're always evolving. So if there's a topic you want to hear, a condition you want us to speak upon, or find families willing to share their story as you're just not ready yet and you want support, reach out, slide in our DMs, send us an email, let us know. We're more than willing to do it. And yeah, we're here for you.
And we do not say it enough, but please, if you've listened to these episodes, if anything has resonated with you, share them. Please give us a like or a 5-star rating or anything to help get the word out to more people, because that's the whole mission, is just to help people and provide value.
Yeah. We'll chat again soon. If this episode felt familiar, you're not imagining it. You are not behind, you are not dramatic, and you are not the only one still thinking about it. You do not have to have it all figured out. You just have to keep showing up. We're really glad that you're here, and we'll keep having these conversations because no one should feel alone carrying this. If this episode resonated with you, we'd love for you to take one simple step. Share it with a friend, another parent, or a caregiver who might need to know they are not alone in this journey. Make sure you are subscribed so you will never miss an episode. We release new stories every Monday. And if you're looking for more connection, resources, or ways to share your own story, come join us on Instagram at Born for This Stories, or visit our website at bornforthisstories.com. Remember, whatever part of the journey you're in, the waiting room, the recovery, or the in-between, you do not have to carry it alone. We see you, we stand with you, and never forget, you were born for this.